Just such a beautiful day. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good day to one and all. Buenos dias and bienvenidos. You are here today. It's Cultivating Voices live poetry. And if it's the third Sunday, it is our wild card open mic, where we have 12 featured readers on the open mic, and you all are the stars. We were talking about the stars in the pre-show here. You all are the stars of the show today. I love the open mic. I love the energy that always comes with wherever we are in our lives and what we bring to the program. It's always a dynamic reading, and with such kind of diversity and interesting poetry. I want to thank everyone here in Zoom, and I want to thank those of you who might be watching on Facebook or on YouTube live. And of course, as I always try to give a little shout out to those of you who devotedly watch our recordings. And that, of course, is thanks to Don Krieger for providing the opportunity for us to have those recordings. We get hundreds of people that watch the recordings every week. And if you are just joining us or listening to us live for the very first time, I'll let you know that Cultivating Voices live poetry began in March of 2020 in relative immediate response to what was going on with the pandemic, providing a platform for folks to come together and connect. And basically, when we couldn't really go out of our houses, find a way to continue to share the love of poetry, as well as, I feel, just provide some opportunities for us to make sense of what was happening back then. Well, we've been going very strong. As I said, we're an international, intersectional, intergenerational group. We did tip the scale of 5,000 members worldwide just about a week ago. We're looking to make a little announcement about that, but there's I'm waiting to confirm who the 5,000th person for sure is. And we're just so grateful for every single one of our members, whether you are here reading live in the readings or whether you are participating in the stream on Facebook and just showing your support there. It's been an extremely humbling experience to host this program. And of course, as I always say, program is not possible without the dedication and good work of Don Krieger and Kim Ports Parsons, who provides the support for this program. And I'll just throw this out because I think it would be good to put a little good energy out there for my sister. When we began, it was my sister and I, and she was the one that kind of encouraged us to take this leap of faith into cyberspace and begin this program. So she's just put a deposit on a new house, and she was terrified of doing it. She's only bought a house once before. So just want to send a little good shout out to my sister Beth, but those of you who know her as Elizabeth Ann. Well, we are here for our wild card open mic. And before I just do a little bit of housekeeping there, I want to also thank last week's readers. Folks, I just literally, the second I said that, just got chills through my body. If you were not here or not able to watch our October new book showcase, my gosh, did this constellation of Morag Anderson, Isabella Bassombrio Hoban, January Gill O'Neill, and Susan Rich, it was just an exceptional showcase. And I would encourage you, when you have a moment, to spend some time with their poetry. It was just such an exquisite reading. Well, we've been very blessed because we go in knowing what our lineup is through, we know what's coming ahead. Kim and I know what's ahead. But I had been looking forward to that reading for so long. And our next two readings new book showcases to take us through the end of the year are equally going to be exceptional. I'll talk about that at the end of the program. Well, just one more announcement before we go to our first reader for today. If you're just joining us and a couple people are just coming into the room, if you are just joining us, we are to our waiting list, so please do put your name in the chat and Kim will add you to our list. I see that Billy Brown and Gary Lilley have just joined in, so certainly would love to hear from them if they have a poem that they would like to share. I was so fortunate last week to be able to participate in a workshop in Olympia with Gary Lilley. That was amazing. I had come on Tuesday, and the next day I was in this workshop with Gary and the community here in Olympia, and then his reading that night was mind-blowing. He began by I'm just gonna say playing some blues poetry. He had his guitar. I mean, it was wow. If you ever have a chance to see Gary Lilley live, sell your soul for it, because it would be worth it. That's all I'm saying. That's quite a big thing to say, but I mean it. I really mean it. All right. Well, we are here for our live open mic, wildcard open mic. And again, just a few housekeeping details. If you, of course, please do use the chat here in Cultivating Voices. Our chat is available for all of you to kind of, share the love, share the encouragement, and of course, with great respect and enthusiasm. And it's also important to mention that if you have a poem or if you have poems that may require, that may necessitate a content notice to help us make sure that folks are able to make a good decision about whether it's for their own self-care, whether they can make that decision if they might need to mute based on some content that you're bringing, which of course is not to censor anybody's content, but it is in the interest of having very solid community in here in Zoom. As I mentioned, the chat is live and we are live here, and it's our wildcard open mic on Cultivating Voices live poetry. So let's get to the first of our readers, and I'm seeing that it's Mona Zamfirescu, and I hope that she is on with us. If not, we'll come back to her. I heard that she might be en route.
Oh, I'm here, Sandy.
Oh, you're here. Very good. Very good. Well,
I'm
welcome.
on my phone, so I apologize about that. I hope you can hear me well. I was
you sound
yeah,
you sound perfect. You sound fabulous. I hope everything's going well in graduate school.
Yeah. I was picking up my son from swim class, and then I just kind of shoved him in the car, and now I'm reading. So he asked me, quite appropriately, Mom, why do you have so many, Zoom calls? Aren't you terrified to talk in front of people? And I said, how appropriate of a question. I'm gonna read a piece that I just read yesterday at an workshop at Dodge Poetry Festival that I've attended for the past 3 days, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I didn't miss a single session, so that was just fantastic. So this is a piece that I wrote during the workshop there, one of the workshops. It's called Self-Portrait. Daybreak shadows linger as I look in the mirror by the front door and wonder what my black cat sees when he looks at me. White hair down my shoulders and tired eyes, always. Why, after all these years, finally, he is ready to climb on my lap and look at me with his white whiskers and languid eyes? I don't ask. Where did the time disappear? The pen in my hand is a memory, a remnant. I was young once. We are writing, surrounded by people and books. Across the room on a bar stool, a boy with a tiny mustache and wire-rimmed glasses. He reminds me of my son and the desert. My son in the desert. The war still far away. The young man at the counter is writing. His youth apparent. His youth transparent. I want my son to see me like the cat ready to jump on my lap as I enter the house. I know that nothing about us is as simple, yet black and white are just ways to say, I love you. Today I see again how night sets over the desert and how the sun comes back. Mom, I wish you could see the way the wind touches my face in the early mornings, the first patrols, the kids in the village nice. Some days there are apples and candy thrown our way. I think they know we are leaving. Soon others will take our place. The desert is kind today, Mom. White hair falls on my face like a river, and I stop worrying. I am grateful for the young man writing his life. The desert is far from us. My son will return. I see myself in the mirror by the front door, early mornings, early fall. Small flower pots line the windows. The summer sun saved, the tiny seedlings rising timidly like poems out of dark husks. Why are we still afraid? There is the black cat lounging on my lap each night, the white spot on his chest stretched as he looks at me softly. After all these years, my son is coming home. Thank you all. Sandy, you're muted.
Oh
I
my
can't hear you.
gosh. There. I know I'm speechless, actually. I'm speechless. What a poem. Um, sometimes they sometimes they come full throttle like that one. What an astounding poem. Um, oh, that the pen in my hand is a memory. Yeah, oh my gosh, thank you so much. What an incredible poem to begin today's wild card open mic here on Cultivating Voices live poetry. That was Mona Zamfirescu, and we now will hear from, getting my list here, Sylvia Pollack, whom I had the great joy, my dear sister, of seeing yesterday. We were at the Seattle Public Library, because I'm joining you from Olympia, Washington today, my old stomping grounds. We were at a reading, Take a Stand, Art Against Hate, that there's the anthology of it. I have it on my room here, but I can't reach it, or else I'd show it and put it up. An incredible anthology that was put out by Raven Chronicles in 2020 during the pandemic. So the official launch of the book was like online. I went to that online reading. It's an incredible anthology, and Sylvia was one of those readers. So of course it was just so fantastic to see you, Sylvia. And of course, I'm very happy to see you today. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, literally. So, well, I will read the poem I wrote for Poets Against Hate, but first I want to read an old poem because it feels so relevant at the moment. This is from my first book, From Risking It, and it's called What the Deaf Woman Can't Hear. The deaf woman doesn't hear the screams. Oh, content warning, Holocaust. So, what the deaf woman can't hear. The deaf woman doesn't hear the screams from the gas chambers. The gas chambers are silent as far as she's concerned, but the stench is remarkable. Interestingly, no one talks about it. a form of politeness, like ignoring the hiccup, the belch, the fart. The camps are wonders of efficiency, debasement, sadism, torture, murder, with their tawdry tattoos, blue numbers on forearms, stacked bunks in the barracks, rotten rations. What comes next in my country? Wonders the deaf woman, the disabled woman, the disposable woman. But a little more hopeful note. This is a poem for Poets Against Hate. And it's called An Other Invocation. The edifice under construction by MAGA America, framed with studs of certainty, built with bricks of belief, decorated with chintz, so laced with holes it provides neither cover nor comfort to a non-believer, has no room for a Jewish, lesbian, scientist poet. They are certain she is woke, although neither she nor they know exactly what that means, if it's actually an appalling way to be. Labels are easy. Sticky with fears and resentments, they are simple to slap onto anyone we deem to be other. We learn early to make distinctions up, down, red, blue, and assuredly us, them. Dutch versus Belgians, Brahmin versus Shudras, Hutu versus Tutsi. In school, we are taught to compare and contrast, but warp that into better than, less than. No wonder othering morphs into conflict and outright war. But we are not helpless. Nurture holds hands with nature as co-creators. We can choose to nurture what connects us. We can starve hate, letting it wither like an unloved houseplant. We can add just 2 letters to other and create together. Thanks.
I can't tell you, thanks for both of those poems. And I can't tell you how fantastic and wonderful and affirming and beautiful it is to be able to hear you read the poem. I love hearing poems over and over and over again. A lot of people, we think people don't want to hear a poem that they've just heard. I love to take in a poem and integrate it and experience it kind of more than once. And so I feel so grateful to be able to hear that poem again so soon after I heard you read that yesterday at the Seattle Public Library. Thank you so much. That's Sylvia Pollack, everyone. Beautiful contribution to our wild card open mic here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. If you've just joined us, there are some slots on the waiting list, 1 poem. So please do put your name in the chat if you are interested in reading. Next, we go to the Artful Dodger. We go west to east, right over to New York, to Harvey Zoss. Welcome, Harvey.
Thank you. Welcome. I should just note initially that I've posted in the chat an invitation to the next Artful Dodgers Poetry open mic, which will be on Sunday. I think it's the 27th, and I'll be listing it on Eventbrite later today. This poem that I'm going to read was born over the last few days on the far side of my weirdness. I think, Sandy, you'd have at least some idea of that. It's called The Story of No. At first, everything, as you might guess, was yes, 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 Adam and Eve trying out their freshly minted body parts, lying side by side to experiment with what goes where and which way to turn the screw. A question that still pops up among the DIYers of today when opening or closing the propane tank of a gas grill, making do without an instruction manual God had promised and never delivered, not for the first time nor for the last, please to watch and let them figure things out for themselves. God's love, an omnipresent voyeur with its deistic nose pressed against the garden's open lattice, work for a looky-loo. El Supremo astonished at how far his invention, flesh, could stretch and what it was capable of. Eve, having discovered a hole in her where Adam didn't have one, sought advice from Samuel, the serpent at your service, who had passed himself off as possessing encyclopedic knowledge, holding himself out as a Delphic oracle might do, sage whose advice was always a bit smudgy and could be interpreted pretty much any way you pleased, so long as you forked over your shekels. The serpent, who enjoyed sticking his nose into other creatures' business and crevices, offered to spelunk in her, promising to leave behind a cave drawing in what we now recognize to have been Eve's vagina, to commemorate his efforts on her behalf. Sidling up to her, letting his tongue precede him in a manner which to our young men and women might have resembled a crayoned illustration of cunnilingus. The serpent climbed onto her lap, tongue dripping with anticipation. Adam, sensing a trap and without so much as a top 10 country song to guide his actions in pursuit of a monogamous relationship, upped and grabbed the serpent by the tail and shouted in a manner Shakespearean audiences at the Globe would have appreciated, "No, 1,000 times no, away, foul beast, who would succeed me? If there's any spelunking to be done, I'll do it. Yea, and verily." The Creator, proud to have observed the spunk in his creation, the first man feeling his manhood stiffen into a trigger-happy blunderbuss, tossing Samuel, if not to hell, then ass over where elbows would have been, into a saran-wrapped audience of howler monkeys seated on high branches, the same nosebleed crew that foretold the present-day emergence of bleacher creatures at our baseball and football stadiums. Go Mets, go Jets. No, 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 if something less than 1,000 times reverberating in the nearest baobab tree where large edible fruits were rained down by the howlers in appreciation. Baboons pointed and gibbered, gorillas, the pair's dearest and closest relatives, observing the hole where Eve's pubic hair seemed to have parted, grunted, "Me want some too," resulting in a roundelay with a refrain of no. Denizens in the garden performed an early version of the wave to see Adam off, who bravely went where no man, gorilla, snake, or baboon had gone before, inside Eve. After wiping himself off on a birch's smooth bark, repeated spelunkings having left a mess, our forefather with the missing rib unexpectedly found himself in need of a larger fig leaf with which to wrap his package, FedEx not yet open for business. The buildup of lactic acid having led to exhaustion, to an acceptance that no means no, whichever one of them requires rest. Piquant as Eve's nipple nose variegation predating our own Swiss Army knife. Mr. Man hissing back at the serpent in response to its request for sloppy seconds, Earth's first timeshare. Soon, both he and Eve had adopted no as an all-purpose word for their don't-do lists, providing some me space in their bondedness, creating their own instruction manual, foretelling no's plethora of employments as described to us by Webster's dictionary. One day, when Eve began to bleed, woman born of man's rib being by far the more imaginative of the two, having mastered origami, the ancient and ever so necessary art of folding a eucalyptus leaf into a makeshift tampon when a forefinger wouldn't stem the flow, confronting menstruation with a no, 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 the original lady pushed her mate away, waggling an undeodorized finger in his face with a determined no, sirree, Bob, leaving a puzzled Adam uncertain if this Bob referred to one of the 1,000 names of the god of love, who is said to have adopted them as a pre-flood hashtag, at a loss to explain where the phrase and the vehemence might have come from, if not from above, stumping poor Adam into coitus interruptus. After which, as husbands the world over have since been at pains to discuss when gathered together to examine and compare their post-flood experiences, it was know this and know that, and not tonight, love. Thank you.
That is Harvey Zoss with, as usual, his signature epic poems. One of his signature epic poems. I really appreciate that intersection between yes and no. And of course, it makes me think so much about consent. Like, where does consent reside? And I've never heard a poem that had the word splunking in it so many times. And I am of the mind that we should have a reading, we should have a poet's focus where everybody comes and reads a poem that's like based on their favorite word. Mine happens to be phlebotomy. I love saying it. So I see splunking in your future, potentially. Thank you. That's Harvey Zoss, everyone, the Artful Dodger. Be sure to check the chat out for the next reading of the Artful Dodger reading series. That'll be on October 27th, Sunday. And thank you so much for organizing your reading so that it didn't conflict with our reading, so that, that we are not, drawing from the same crowds here. So thank you. Well,
You're
and
welcome.
we'll move next to Ken Burch, who's here, probably right down the road from where I am here in I'm in Olympia. I'm actually in Lacey today, Ken.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, so good to see you. Thank you.
Good to be here. Before I get into this, I'd like to say that I remember when I was a child, my favorite words were pistachio and Madagascar. I don't know why, there was something about those words that stayed with me. I guess Madagascar seemed like it was the furthest place from me that anything could ever be at that point in my life. But anyway, having said that, I'll go into my two pieces today. This first one is kind of an experiment in form, which I did 3 couplets, adding just a little bit each time, sounding similar things, and then I reversed the word sequence in the second 3 couplets, and so it's called reversal at this point. It's called reversal. I woke up and I saw vague things which I could not make sense of. I woke up and I saw vague new things which I could not yet make clear, new, real sense of. I woke up and I saw that. I saw now vague, dim, new, near things which I could not yet make clear sense of. Why? Why of sense clear make, yet not? Could I, which things near, new, dim, vague, now I saw I? That saw I and up woke I? Sense real, new, clear make, yet not could I, which things new, vague saw I, and up woke I, of sense make not could I, which things vague saw I, and woke up I. The second piece is one of these Senru cycles that I've been doing, and I've been evolving it into a form where, like, the last line of the first piece is the first line of the next one in the sequence, kind of a meditation of the election and of the not knowing what's ahead of us thing. So Senru cycle for what may be. In 16 days, we find out what could be due us, or we don't at all. Or we don't at all. And the apprehension shared does not reach an end, does not reach an end, and great impermanence holds itself in place, holds itself in place. All hail the uncertainty, balanced on the ledge, sands foundational beneath. What's the counterweight? What's the counterweight, and who built the ledge whereon chaos perches near? Chaos perches near, talons sharpened, lethal beak. Who's its falconer? Who's its falconer? Not the orange man alone. He has not the skills. He has not the skills or the energy to train such a bird of doom. Such a bird of doom must be sharpened to its soul, honed each day to strike. Honed each day to strike. If we are not to prey, we must hone ourselves. We must hone ourselves for the battle, years to last, to stay who we are. Thank you.
Well, prepare for the battle to stay who we are. That really goes right in. That went right in. That is Ken Burch, everyone. I also want to say that first poem, I just was really feeling like the echo of E. Cummings. I was like just feeling that come through the screen. And when something like that pops into my head, if I name it, if I see it, I'll name it. And so there it was. I always love what you do with form and how you create your own forms and how you introduce us to that possibility of play and curiosity within our own forms. So thank you so much. That's Ken Burch. Great to see you today. Well, we
Thank you.
move across the pond to Cathal MacThréinfhir. So good to have you with us today. Tonight, of course. Tonight for you, of course, over there in Ireland.
Hello, Sandra. Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody today. Two poems for you. The first one based on a Chinese poet called Su Tung Po, one of his poems. So it's called On Wu Hill. In my mind's eye, I am there on Wu Hill, and boating on the lake where water spilled to rivers of eternal memory. The carved railings, finite in history, as I run my hands slowly across them. In this space, I know the age of man. Time will grass over temple and pavilion and leave all trace of my presence unseen, hidden in its verdant undergrowth. And the horizontal green of Wu Hill shimmers in the morning light of day still. A traveler might trace my steps alone and hear the echoes of voices long gone. And the second one is called Bloodlines. And as I say, it's slightly a bit longer than that first one, but I hope you'll enjoy it. As I say, it's based more on history and basically the history of Ireland and my own linking with my own lineage. Anyway, here we go. It's called Bloodlines. The river run of the bloodlines, true and deep as the blade of time, cuts out the measure of the days to the rhythm of a heartbeat. Upon the stony shore where Viking blood and iron hammered out longships, ports and towns, water roads veined inland through forests deep, where Celtic war bands brooded dark in the myths. Later, the Norman knight held sway, where Henry's rule had won the day, and Strongbow's prize was Aoife's hand, saving our father's Leinster land. So that the lordship of Ireland was set in Henry II's crown. Then flow of years came dripping down, and the Virgin Queen held pale. The flight of chieftains from the north to cede their pride to Spanish gold and drink away their dreams in Rome, their graves deep by the Tiber's banks. The Gaelic order fell to ruin. No wood for feastings with the forests gone, the songs and sagas whispered low by drunken poets in taverns. The planter's roots sunk deep in Ulster's soil, and in time mixed with the native blood, giving my forebears their hardiness to endure, a true line deep to my bloodline. I awake to this memory, echo of the bloodlines run deep. With every beat and rhyme of verse, I recover what was stolen from me. That's it, my friends. Back to you, Sandy, and back to everybody. Thank you. And great listening so far.
Indeed, great listening so far. Thank you. That's Cathal MacThréinfhir for joining us from Ireland with 2 poems. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful words there. Love it. If you're just joining us, folks, you are listening to Cultivating Voices live poetry. It is our wild card open mic where you all are the features. We are listening. We are about halfway through our featured readers. We're heading over to Catherine Ronan in a moment. But if you've just joined our program, we are, I believe we might still be taking names for our waiting list where you would have the opportunity to read 1 poem. We go up to 90 minutes in the program, and we try to get in as many people as we can. And on that note, let us go over to West Cork with the one and only Catherine Ronan.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be reading a poem called Lost Notebook here tonight because it was born from a prompt given by Cultivating Voices. And it has now been published. It's exclusive now, lads, exclusive. It has now been published in the longest standing Irish literary journal. That'll be 50 years old next year. It's called the Stony Thursday. So you're all part of this poem. Lost Notebook. You showed me your scar that summer. I drew it in my notebook and wondered all my life what had taken a knife would let you bleed into shadow. I kiss that scar in my sleep sometimes, trace it with a corvid's feather, break the spine of my longing in the ink of it. And the second poem I'm going to read is a poem, and my first poetry film actually. Well, first of all, it's in my book, Elemental Skin, and as I had said to Sandy recently, I thought, well, it's in the book, Goodbye Policing Mary, but no, it was selected by Swerve magazine to be published in 2024. It was picked up by the library services, and now it forms part of Poetry in the Park project. And I resurrected my poetry film that's on, I just put it up on Facebook tonight, so I'm public, so go and have a look at it if you want to laugh at Policing Mary. Policing Mary. Auntie Mary is a strange one, full of Irish me-aw. She would only suck berries from a cracked china cup. Her hairy chin runs all the way to her toes, and she wonders about the commas of the world, surrounded by semicolons. She calls them lulas. I think she means lunatics. We both feel the pull of the moon. Tides tickle at every wall. There is no policing Mary. She prizes limpets and cockles, naked-handed from rocks, refuses to go to mass, crunches shells during the soaps, calls for lavender at bedtime, whenever that is. Time is nothing. There are no sheets for Mary. She sleeps in 3 places. You never know where. There is no policing Mary.
Oh, fantastic. Well, congratulations on the film. Congratulations on the publications. And congratulations for using, taking advantage of a potential prompt that every now and then we do have those little added bonuses that emerge from within the reading. And Usually they are the genius of Kim Porce Parsons. I can't really take credit for that, and I won't take credit for that. She comes up with just really, she devotes a lot of energy to thinking about our poets' focus words in particular, and then we kind of noodle about them. And that was a particularly generative one. So, and of course, Stony Thursday is indeed the oldest journal, and I've had the great pleasure of having a poem in, pre-pandemic. I think it was pre-pandemic. So if you're looking for international journals to publish in, and if you're interested in publishing in Ireland in particular, I would encourage those of you to look up the Stony Thursday book out of Limerick, actually. So thank you. That's Catherine Ronan joining us. A good evening to you. And we now go to Sylvia Clare. So wonderful to have you with us on the program today.
Thank you. Yes, it's great to be here as well. I've been really busy, and it's lovely to be able to come back. I'm putting together a new volume, and it's called Love, Death and Everything in Between. And this is one, they're going to do 2 poems from it, the tougher stuff. It's basically looking at the tougher stuff of life. It's called Death, a Love Letter. Death, please come in your own good time. Do not hurry, but do not leave me too long. Rescue me from decrepitude and the inhumanity of human agedness. Yours is the quiet sleep, an eternal peaceful release from duty, just like the much-needed rest at the end of a long day. I anticipate your gentle touch of acknowledgement, of burdens borne, duties met, and struggles completed. It's gone. Death, I do not wish to deny you your own moment of glory when you claim what is rightfully yours, your role as the eternal recycling system for planet and universe. Not a molecule of my body will be wasted, it never has been. My gardens are already epic monuments to the cells I scattered as I worked in them, my touch, my sweat, forever nourishing what grew where they fell. I'm already immortalized in their ongoing existence. Death, there are so many times when I would have had you come sooner, would invite you with open arms to end the confusion, my constant daily struggle to understand the world of human. But I'm grateful you remained distant from me then, not indulging me in my heartfelt pleas to take me, and not my friend. She wanted to stay longer when I so often did not. Yet there have been many joys in my life to balance the darkness. Came the lightness of love, and I might have missed them. Death, your shadow over life is a comfort, that this will one day be finished, completed as a mission, a joyful departing, knowing I did my best, always. We humans are full of errors of judgment, of not knowing what we are and who we are, confused by concepts of self. When I was released from that, it became easier to understand the gift of your existence that really offers, the gift that your existence really offers us. We already have eternal life, so who would seek more in only one deluded incarnation when we are already everything, everywhere, and insignificant? Death, we ignore your gift you offer daily. When you take the bird, the earthworm, the autumn leaves, when we eat the apple, we do not consider that the apple is immortal within our bodies and eternally afterwards. We do not see how your gift nourishes all that lives. The gift of death feeds the world. The sunset and sunrise each day, the gentle movements of each wave on the mighty oceans, birthing and dying instantly, constantly, eternally in movement. Thank you, Death, for all of these teachings. Your wisdom is infinite. And the other poem I want to do in my 5 minutes, if I can, is called Grief. If I knew grief, how would I encounter the stoic inside me? Could she still be strong, resilient, maintain equanimity? If grief came to me and begged to be allowed into my life, would I melt or crumble under the weight of so much? If grief came after me, chasing me into death, I might walk unwillingly, or else run ahead, eager to see what it might be like. What could I look forward to? If I found grief hiding under a stone or behind a tree, I would laugh, hold out my hand and say, come dance with me here and now. It is only a moment of change. If I saw grief sitting in a church mourning a loss, I would stay, share the moment, reflect on so many losses in my own life. Find me a peppercorn from a house where no one has died, asked the Buddha. Grief flowed through me when you died, sharp as knives honed in fire. The moment passed, like falling autumn leaves we all lose. The space left allows something new. If we can let go and just look up, the sky is still there.
Those are exquisite poems, and I love the title of the emerging, soon to be published when
About
soon
6
to be
months. I've got
published.
a lot of writing and a lot of organising to do. I'm planning
Yeah,
on it now in 6 months' time.
Well, we have had the great pleasure of having a preview of Sylvia Clare's forthcoming collection, Love, Death, and Everything in Between. You heard it here, folks. I love that title. I just absolutely love that title. It's so great. That's fantastic. And of course the poems as well. That's Sylvia Clare. Thank you so much. And
thank you for
look
having
forward
me.
to hearing,
thank you for listening.
Of course, and look forward to hearing more poems from the collection. Well, we go now to Mona Lynch. I just have such fond memories of seeing you, Mona, at Ovale, and I always love it when you're able to join us here, but whenever I have an opportunity now to, get to see someone here with us in Zoom that I've now met in person, I just get all, I get all warm and fuzzy. So
likewise, Sandy, thank you. My first poem is hopefully going to be in the end of my first collection. It's a tribute to this village where I grew up, and I'm sure a lot of you know it. It's the famous Blarney village where Blarney Castle and you all visit. And it's called, it's a series of 5 poems, and this little one is called The Square. I'm sure you can't visit the castle without seeing the large green square in the middle of the village. The Square. Fat raindrops hung from the railings outside the house, like diamonds when the sun struck them, their iron taste strange. The walk to school on reluctant feet, coloured by the friends you met. Crossing the village square, if only it could sing out its history. Tell of a time when it was a bleaching green for the linen factory, linen stretched by orphan boys with chafed hands. Today, St. Bridget's Day, an aged poet, I sit there again under young leafless trees in the footprints of old oaks, chaffinches, robins singing their territorial songs. The Venetian windows of the amiable Church of Ireland wink benevolently on the square. On the opposite hill, the bellcote and clerestory windows of the Catholic Church always looking down, its domination dimmed, where I swallowed circles of bread and fought sleep in the hum of prayers. And the bell. No escape from that church bell, in its depth and resonance, carries its 6 chimes of 3 + 9, morning, noon, and night throughout our lives. And my next poem is a tribute to my friend who I lost 4 years ago last Monday, who went to that village school with me when we were 4. It's called Catch Up, in memory of Maureen. In a marquee with the warm glow of heaters high up on the walls, COVID drove us outside to the fresh air, no masks, for 2 hours of chat. Sweet apple pie, ice cream melting, a swirl of heavy syrup, eyed by patrolling wasps. How to chat for 2 hours. Easy, with decades to cover. The grass soft underfoot. Years of knowing our banter, our mother's banter before us. refills and refills, while the world whizzed by without us. Our farewell was slow, delayed by the thundering traffic on the road we crossed. Our next rendezvous to plan. Make it soon. It was soon. Next morning, a call, a voice telling me of her fall. In the family room, in a wretched hospital gown, I held her cold hand. Thank you.
That is Mona Lynch. What a just very poignant poem. And, you know, of course, it makes me hearken back to think about, you know, even childhood friends that I don't have connections with, but to have a friend that was on the journey all the way through. That is quite a thing, and that is quite a thing more than worthy of poetry. It is poetry itself to have lived that life. It is poetry itself to have lived that life. Beautiful poems. Thank you so much. Well, now we go to Canada, to Max Vandersteen. It's so fabulous to see you today, Max. I hope you're doing very well.
I am doing well. Thanks, Sandy, for the introduction. Thank you for allowing me to read here. It's wonderful to be with you all here. Hope everybody's had a great summer. And I would like to share 2 or 3 poems from a new collection I'm putting together, kind of a follow-up. I think it was about 3 years ago now that I shared poems on the new book Showcase from a book I had put out at that time called Work of Words, about working in the petrochemical industry. So this is kind of a follow-up, but it's more, I'd like to share some memories of the friends and people I worked with during that time, more so than the consequences of that particular industry. So this first one is called Groundbreakers, and a slight trigger warning, there is a racial reference in here. Some may take exception to, but in the context of when it was used, it had no racial bias intended. Anyways, Groundbreakers. Pipe fitters, boiler makers, and rig hands. We were there when they built the refineries on Muskeg to mine the mighty tar sands. All the tradesmen with mechanical skills. We were there when they built the power plants on the coal seams curled beneath the foothills. Rig welders, fitters, and oil patch boomers. We were there when they buried the pipelines under the prairies and parkland forests. Great the tales that remain of pioneers in industries of oil and energy, yet lost are the trails of the shifting, drifting tradesmen chasing pipe dreams and the loads of cash. Labor camps, small town bars, and union halls echo the monikers of mighty men who plied their trade while history was made, and always their boasts and toasts fill the ears, while their hard-earned bills filled the locals' tills to create generous reputations. Ah, the memories of Sarge, Squiggy, and Cowboy, Tucker, Spaniard, and John the Jeweler, Huck and Frenchie, Footley and Stan the Man, Maximus, Hawk, and Hacky the Packy, earning a living for their families and generating a name for themselves. Where now do these famous mates of old employ their energies and carry on? This next one I'd like to share is about a particular woman I worked with named Myra. She worked in the tool crib in Fort McMurray at a shutdown, one of the first ones I worked at. And I'm talking like in the early 80s, so 40 some years ago. She was an anomaly actually working in the industrial field. There just weren't very many females there. So I admired her. I don't know how she did it. But anyways, this poem's about her. It's called The Tool Crib Princess. Myra had more than an aura about her. That beguiled line before her never decreased, with a body of men at least a dozen deep. The translocated lady from down east managed the outage warehouse and tool crib through the Suncor refinery shutdown, where females were few but part of the clique, more approachable than the ones uptown. She saw it through. That's all she could do. So soon, every day, tradesmen stood in line just to inquire of the warehouse wench for new safety glasses or pair of gloves, though needed not, or to ask for a wrench, which they already got, just to see, smell, and feel the pull of her sexuality, to chit-chat, flirt, try to infatuate, or reaffirm their own vitality. She struggled through because she wanted to. Materials, PPE, tools, and gear she stored and issued behind the counter. Outside that window, tall tales, boastful lies, and hopeful eyes fixated upon her. Though residency in the camp may meld culture, color, age, and personality, one's gender persevered, blended not visually, as did one's identity. She made it through. She knew that she had to. Myra played the role of the good time girl as they tried to get a rise in their own genes. Soon she was a woman wary of games, of tricks played and scenes midst the idle machines. The tool crib princess endured through the stairs, even a few lewd comments that were made, but recognized capers and prank requests quickly as she learned the tools of the trade. She floundered through, not sure of what to do. Wrenches, impacts, sockets, discs, and grinders, turfers, shackles, come-along, slings, and chain falls, snatch blocks, pin bars, pipe stands, files, and hacksaws, rubber suits, harnesses, and coveralls. This and other equipment, which at length she identified or gradually learned. But the skyhooks, pipe stretchers, and long stands, they were but gags she eventually discerned. She worked it through, figured out what to do. A beer now and then, but never too late. A day off unlikely, not till next week. A work-safe workforce, no accidents here, with lots of OT, no place for the meek. A laugh here and there with a tear between. A friend here and there, but rare heart to heart. A community to work with and live until time when one by one all depart. She thought it through, sure of what not to do. She knew that the prolonged isolation, dispossession, loneliness, and foreignness wore down individual identity and smothered acts of truthful openness. A stoic tradesman silenced their pain, discussed not grief nor vulnerability, and seasoned camp dwellers dared not to share feelings deflating infallibility. Yet through and through, it's what she wanted to do. So thank you all.
That is Max Vandersteen, everyone. And you really remind us that there's so much richness in writing about work. Joanne James mentioned that too. She wished there were more poems, and I have a little bit of that in the Glass Studio, my latest collection, because it was about my dad's kind of trade as a stained glass artist, and the stuff of work, the things that surround the work, and of course the humans that perform the work. And I love that, paying tribute to your coworker. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Max. Well, we're down to our 3 final featured readers for our wild card open mic here on Cultivating Voices live poetry. So those of you on the waiting list, just sit back. We're almost to you. And we'll hear next from Linette Rabsatt. It's so wonderful to have you return. I really loved your poems the last time, and I'm very happy to be able to listen again.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. I have 2 pieces to share today. The first piece is called What the Shadows Remember, and it's about my experience with Hurricane Irma. What the shadows remember from that 6th day of September in the year 2017 is far less than what you may think, because shadows only exist when there is light. And on the 6th of September, even though the day started out bright, by midday outside looked like night. The sun ran away because Irma came at full swing at a tiny place, unready for the unleash of wind, water, and low pressure. A shadow could never measure up to the forces of this hurricane. So they all ran away and left us in the turbulence as our light and public water went. The shadows wouldn't remember the throbbing noises and the doors and windows bursting, or the people who became homeless and how the hopeless ran from the destroyed land. I remember and still see relics of that nightmare. And I will forever remember how the shadows disappeared when Irma visited the BVI. So that's my first piece. The second piece is a little bit more lighthearted. I love music. So this poem is called When the Music Hits You. When the music hits you, skank, whine, dip, and even if you trip, shake, twist, jump, pump your fist, wiggle your hips, jiggle your arms, move like love kissed you, turned you around and surrounded you with peace and happiness. Feel the vibrations, capture the moment with movement, off or on the beat. Move your feet, release your fears, and when the music hits you, skank, whine, dip, and even if you trip, shake, twist, jump, pump your fist, wiggle your hips, jiggle your arms, and move. Thank you.
Absolutely love it. I love the lyricism of both of them, and you know, the exuberance in the second. I went dancing this morning. You wouldn't hear me say that because I said it in the green room before. So I was moving. I've been moving. And you know, I'm just gonna sometimes I give Kim a little hint, like, hey, maybe a word for a future poet's focus. Move, dance. Okay, Kim. There you go. Oh, wonderful readings. Well, it's fabulous. We're to our final two readers in the wildcard open mic featured sets, and we move next to Joanne James. Thank you, Joanne, for being here. So awesome to see you.
Hi, such a good reading. I didn't know when Max in the green room that Max mentioned how people were looking towards America and what was at stake. And I thought of this piece. And Don Krieger was generous and kind enough to read it, and nobody else knows this poem. And then the next part about it, it's also bloodlines. I think it was him that had the poem Bloodlines. So then I said, I have to read it. This is a place I can do it. Bloodlines, an elegy. Before I knew these stories, because of secrets, because of a kind of madness in the family, I took the midnight train to the West Coast, Santa Cruz, California. I was 25. Had to start over because I fell in love with a woman. Didn't want to live a life underground. Dark bars at night, the only place we could meet in Syracuse. I believed in us because I was in love for the first time. And I had just been married to a man for 4 years. As the train was coming down the tracks, my mother crying, my father silent, I stepped forward 1 foot onto the train and 1 foot still in the past. Like stepping into the Red Sea, trusting it would part. 4 days on the train, a lesbian woman, not afraid to risk everything. Train tracks through the nightlands of my ancestors, all is departure. We've ignored our lineage. We've forgotten to honor, parting without words. Bereaved, all is loss, all is absence, fleeing violence. When I learned about my great-grandmothers, so this is the part about just to say, this is what could happen in the Ukraine and what has happened in Ukraine with the wrong people in power. My two Sophies, my great-grandmothers, their violent deaths, I knew they were a part of me, making me bold. My family has continued the violence. What makes us able to forsake one another, the silent grudges? The silence, is this in our bloodlines? We came from the bloodlands, and that's really what it's called in Ukraine. My great-grandmother, Sylvia Pollack, was one of 14 million who were victims of Stalin and Hitler. At 92, she was forced onto a train with her family by soldiers. Their farm was taken for the collective. She got off the train and yelled, "I won't die in Siberia," and she was shot dead on the tracks. The family still brings flowers to that place. The family divided by the Iron Curtain. Never learned this story for decades. My grandmother, her daughter, would never know how her mother died. No one talked about the old world. This is where the violence begins to unravel the family. She married Peter Warbeck, my grandfather, who came from the city of Tarnopol. His father, all was ever told was he died in a boxcar, another train. These were the years of pogrom in Ukraine. My grandfather fled at 18 with a friend, boarded a ship in Germany. What happened to his mother, Sophie Schultz? Heavy-weighted wall of sadness and leaden mystery. Maybe one day I'll find her story. It's thought that she died in Auschwitz. My grandfather never spoke about the past. His sister lived in Auburn, where I was born. She lived to be 101, and I never even knew of her. My grandfather escaped violence to bring it to the new land. My father told me he watched his father chase his mother through the kitchen with an axe. He had to get him out of the bars on payday. The Warbeck family was 4 sisters and 4 younger brothers, and my grandmother worked all that time in a Columbia rope factory. She hardly spoke English. The Iron Curtain came down and sealed off her documentation. She never became a citizen. My memory of my grandpa is the smell of booze as he sat on the front porch drinking Boilermakers for breakfast. Once he told me our name, Vorobchik, was Ukrainian for little bird. But when he came through the port of Baltimore, the spelling was simplified to Warobik. War entered our name after that. When I had cancer at 34, he came to me in dreams, wanted to give me a Miata red sports car and told me I deserved it. That was the first visit. I said, "I haven't seen you in so long." And he replied, "I've just been in this other room all the time." His mother was Jewish. My grandfather practiced no religion. But in one dream, I'm standing in the garage of the house on Bear Road where I grew up to my waist in letters. And when I read them in Hebrew, they say, "We are your ancestors and we're praying for you." This family of silences and shunning, how I've learned to shut a door and keep it shut, yet we are all connected in DNA dreams. Thank you.
Wow. That's Joanne James. That's powerful. That's very powerful. And I so appreciate you sharing it with our audience here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. And obviously you just saw that heart from Don Krieger, and thanks, Don, for helping encouraging Joanne to share the poem with us. Amazing. Our final reader for our featured readers is Gordon Ferris. And folks, we go to 90 minutes, and I know we have about 7 people on the open mic for the waiting list. I'll do my very best to get us through as many as possible. So let's hear from Gordon. Welcome to you, Gordon. So nice to see you.
Good evening, everybody. Some great poems being read there now this evening so far, as usual. I'm going to start with 2 short ones now about childhood. You know, the first one was called At Two. When I was small, our house seemed huge, the hall a skating rink. We would slide up and down in our stocking feet. Our adults seemed like gentle giants, always smiling, playing our childish games. My heart would leap on my chest when I'd see my dad come around the corner in his faraway gaze. His eyes would brighten and his face lit up when he saw my face ignite at his coming home. As a baby, I remember not going to sleep until he came home. I'd fall asleep lying on his chest, drifting off to the rhythm of his heartbeat. And this is another one about childhood as well. It's a bit of a weird one. I remember my first day in school, wondering why my mother would not give me hot milk on my cornflakes or let me have milky coffee instead of milky tea. Or why she forced me to stay with a neighbour while she worked until 3. I remember as a child, I looked my granny in the eye and said, "You must cut the crust off my toast and smother it with jam." She left me with the blacksmith in his forge until 3. So now we're all grown up, and it is horrible being an adult. The carousel just keeps turning, and we all talk about with doubts and the dread possibility of having all these doubts confirmed. And it's another short poem. It's about the strangers that we meet in public places. You know, we don't even talk to them. It could be on a bus or on a train or in a cafe having a coffee. You're not with them. You're just observing them. You know, it's called Temporary Friends. Strange faces suddenly come into my space, become momentarily part of my world, entering into my orbit, all sorts of imagined interactions. Then just as suddenly they're gone, slowly fading, as if never having existed. Yeah. And there's another short poem called The Door. The door, imposing obstacle to freedom, no locks or bolts, just restraints on the will to leave. The same restraints tie the hand that holds the pen, making the words stay off the page. And this is a short poem again, called Walking Poem. This is, I go for walks in the area that I live quite often, nearly every day, you know, so this is just what goes through my head when I'm walking. Can I learn the name of these trees and flowers I see each day as I walk in my secret place? The green, brown, with leaves like velvet. What is your name? The purple, yellow, and red flower that attracts the bee. What is your name? And I'm going to finish with a new poem. It's not finished yet now. This is just the first draft of it. It started out as a sestina, but I've cut out some of it. You know, I'm still using the end word of the first verse, but I've cut down the words per line, the syllables per line, because it didn't really work. It's still not working. I'll try it here anyway. It has no title. You can take 6 words that come together, that make sense of memories that come alive, make those nighttime sounds depart. They change the darkened image and bring what seems real to life. You can take 6 words that come to life, beg that others come before you, present an image that can somehow make sense before the time comes for it to depart, leaving you glad to be alive. So now you are glad to be alive. Finally, you get to witness what comes to life. With lowered eyes, you watch as it does depart, and as suddenly you watch as it does again come. Eventually it will be clear, and it will make some sense. And when the mist lifts, you at last get to see the image. At sunup you rise, at sunup you rise, and I an image. It is faintly visible, but strangely makes you feel alive. It does make sound, barely audible, but making sense. It seems alien, but is recognizable in your life. The type that through an open door does come, and just as quickly, it must depart. Just as quickly as it departs, and in its place appears an image, a faint mist-like figure that comes, all the luck of being alive, yet none of the signs of being. Nothing seems to have to make sense, yet it does make sense, and more quickly it does again depart, to begin in a new place, a new life. And now before you, you have a new image. The like before will be alive. It's from a new realm. They come to present to you a new bright image, and in your dream, you feel more alive. And from all of this, new life does come. Thank you.
That's Gordon Ferris, everyone. Thank you so much, Gordon. You know, I would believe that you are not the only one who has collapsed a sestina in their time, given that form. Well, folks, I'm going to go directly right to the open mic. I'm going to keep my comments very minimal because I want to get through to as many people. I might go a few minutes over if I think we can get everybody in within 10 more minutes. So let's go right over to Possibility Brown.
Thank you, Sandy, and thanks to everyone who's read. It's been very inspiring. I've recently been assembling the December issue of the Fixed and Free Quarterly, and I encountered some wonderful poems from Charles Cobean. Has he ever read on Cultivating Voices, Charles Cobean?
Not that I'm recalling.
Okay. Well, here's one of his poems that he sent me, which will be in our December issue. Anxiety. I caught anxiety from my sister, who caught it from her son, who caught it from a hyperventilator on the internet and reposted it. Now it's everywhere. It's contagious, you know, anxiety. Google it if you don't believe me. I also came down with a bad case of nostalgia, which everyone says is incurable. Not sure where I picked that up. Unmasked in a crowd of melancholics, I suppose, which should serve me right for trying to be nice. Sad people, who needs them? Mania, that's another one, highly contagious. And phobia, all shapes and sizes, lots of that going around. Seems like everything's viral these days, infecting our fragile 6-foot environment with a fat, wet sneeze. No one is safe. My advice, stay home and don't let anyone in. Order online. Deliver the bags to the stoop, boxes by the garage. Be vigilant. Our days are numbered. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Billy Brown sharing Charles Cobean's poem that'll be out in the December issue of Fix and Free Quarterly. And I know there's folks in this room that are in that issue. So congratulations. I always look forward to seeing the quarterly. Well, again, folks, our next reader is Gary Lilley. And I just, you know, Gary has been on the program many times. To me, Gary's a national treasure here in the United States. I think he's just a phenomenal poet. And I was so happy to be in his company for a workshop in Olympia just this past week, and looking forward to seeing you this upcoming weekend too. So thanks for joining us today.
Right.
Hey, hi Sandy. I got a lot of friends here. The stuff that I just saw last week and stuff. So it's good to see everybody. And I know that you're pressed for time, so I'm not gonna waste any more of that. I'm just gonna go with it. This poem is And What About the Unwoke? Ain't they what we used to call zombies when we were allowed to stay up late on Friday nights, shock theater on a black and white TV set? You know what this is all about and what happens next when a bloodbath is the post-election threat of the potential losing politician. Am I one of the grown-up others utterly unarmed in this American gun city across the water inside of Canada? And is there any freedom, any safety, any protections from the law? Is there any way to avoid those damn checkpoint streets named for founding fathers, white men, slave owners, Washington, Jefferson, Monroe, and Jackson? Is there any way to avoid roadblocks while trying to get the hell out of here to catch the blackball ferry line to Victoria? Are there more blacks across the strait than here up against a sad MAGA hat town with a history of logging that was chilled by spotted owls and a paper mill owned by the Japanese, and the working fishermen that throw back fin-clipped salmon just to maintain legality, and border patrol that eat their lunch at Kentucky Fried Chicken? Further west is a proper setting for a TV series about werewolves and vampires. And why am I stared at in Swains buying socks and underwear, but feel relatively safe in the bookstore and just keep my head on a swivel among the bearded clutching of open carry men standing their ground, their unwoke wives under their armpits, and everyone can see me now under that umbrella tree as the night slams down by the twilight's last and next to last gleaming. Can you see me with more than your wide open eyes? Thank you.
Great poem. Great, amazing poem. Always, always. It's Gary Lilley, everyone. I would keep going on, but I want to get in as many people as we can. So, I'm so excited Kara Briggs is here. I'm just thrilled that Kara Briggs' new book is out, Rivers in My Veins. And Kara will be one of our featured readers in our new book showcase for November. A little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Welcome, Kara. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. And I just wanted to say I'll be reading at Orca Books in Olympia, Washington next Saturday at 6 p.m. on October 26th. This is a poem from a chapbook that my friends at the University of Hawaii Manoa are publishing next month. Filleting salmon is a political act, for Janet Mirikatani. My kitchen island scrubbed clean as an operating table, fillet knives arranged. I pull a Chinook from the Coleman, already gutted, weighing me down a moment before a scaly glide liberated it from my grasp, from my counter. No hook can catch this salmon arcing as if air was water, as if my kitchen was the sea, mist of boiling water was cloud. I wait for a flop on my kitchen floor. I recover salmon's blackened skin, orange flesh, white bone, piece by piece inside veined innards. Across my granite island spreads scent of salt water, cut against the grain salmon, returned for generations, carrying peace from the Pacific into cut bank rivers. You know we are related, but not in the way you think, only a line as thin as the contour of salmon flesh. That is all that divides you and I. Sandy, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I am, but I sometimes do the wow wow when I'm muted to, to get myself onto the camera. Oh my gosh, what a great poem. That's Kara Briggs, everyone. And anytime anyone invokes Janice Mirikatani, I just start getting all swoony and yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, we stay here in good luck with the reading. I'm sorry I can't. I'm sorry I'll be at a different reading that was pre-scheduled because I would like nothing better than to see you read in Olympia, and you're a beautiful reader too. So I just want to put that out there. The poems are exquisite, but your reading of the poems is also exquisite. Well, stay here in Olympia, right? Probably down the street from where I am here. Cynthia Pratt. So good to see you. And let's hear what you have for us today.
So this does have some triggering lines that may make some people uncomfortable. An egg almost called death. Who would have thought that it started with an egg? But really, it doesn't, does it? It started with mumps and the husband taking to his bed because he was certain that he would become sterile catching it. So she nursed him back to health and ta-da, pregnant. But no, the doctor was sure she was not. Eventually, blood started flowing and flowing, so no, not pregnancy, despite an uncomfortable pain in her left groin. Then another doctor refusing to believe her age, her marriage, refused to examine her, test her, told her happiness is a death sentence. Well, no, not exactly these words, because he thought her 12, not 22. Then the trip home and visiting with a sister and brother, and almost the prediction that not all eggs are viable, lodging themselves in canals that are only to relay the happy product, but now definitely is a death sentence, a primary vein eaten away by an embryo that could not live, an egg turned into cells which will never cry or laugh. Of course, the story ends happily ever after, or at least happy that the hero and heroine lived, had other children, wished she did not have to have the abortion the church said of the surgery to save her life, but grateful that the moon comes up another evening and the evening grosbeak walks resolutely along the backyard edge of grass under the maple tree, looking for seeds or insects to take back to her hatched eggs, now beautifully fluffy chicks, waiting to learn to fly, waiting to leave the nest and move on as strong, fertile birds. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's Cynthia Pratt. Folks, we are at time, but if you'd stick with us, I just want to get to the three people. Two of them, I believe it's their first time reading, and I know they could come back and read another time, but they're here and we're here. So, let's honor them. And so in that spirit, let us go to Kate Wegrzyn. Hi, Kate.
Okay, hello. A joy to be here, and against hate manifests in all forms. Back to the 1960. Mother, I tell you, as an apple picker today and yesterday, I filled the basket with memories, and now an invitation to bring friends from another church. And my mother did. And when the minister found out that my mother had invited coloreds, he would not come to the church. My mother stood up and stood behind the pulpit, and she gave the sermon. Oh, there's some against hate here, because everybody hated her for speaking out. Oh, then the 4th of July came. Oh, someone had fainted, and we were celebrating the 4th of July, and the person that fainted was supposed to speak, and who stood up but my mother? And she gave the speech. Oh, people spoke about her everywhere in the neighborhood. Oh, even in my elementary school. I was a young child. The backlash of women engaging in change that was meant to be. We're just horrified. We arrived at a traffic accident. The rescue workers needed a vehicle to place injured children and take them to the hospital. The rescue workers approached my mother. She was driving our family station wagon. I sat in the front seat with her, and Dory and Larry, little ones, sitting in the back seat. Mom looked at me and back at my young siblings, and she said, "Dear Kathy, you could handle having Dory and Larry move to the front seat, and you could sit in the back, and you could comfort these injured children." I was maybe 11. But you know, my mother knew who I was, and she gave me so much. And I'm telling you, I have so much to give for a long, long time, because my mother told me to dance this world and forget about those that would criticize. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Well, as I said, folks, I want to get to, we have two final readers, and because I think this is the first time, so I did want to extend. So let's hear from Corine Demas. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm on my phone and it was difficult. I wanted to say first, thank you to Sandy. Your impeccable hosting. I'm always very impressed. Can people hear me? Great. Okay. So I'm going to read from my one and only chapbook. It's called 10, 20, 30, 40. And it's a retrospective of my poetry that I started writing at the age of 10. So I'm going to read you a poem from January 6th, 1997, which makes me a 17-year-old girl who's grappling with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. So this is called Bleed Me. Bleed me. I can stand it. Just this once. I'll lay still. Bleed the bad blood out of me. Bleed me free of racing thoughts, of fog, of paranoia. Bleed me free of delusion, insane thought, insane memory. Bleed the black blood out of me. Will it hurt? Will I rage? Bleed the black blood gone till it's crimson. I'll lay still or shackle me. Bleed me free from insanity. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here, and I remember hearing you read on a couple other different platforms, and you have such a compelling voice, and I'm really glad you shared it with us today. Thank you. Thank you. Please come back and read as often as you can. All right, our final reader is, he just said he wanted to go by John, so I'm just saying John. We'll hear from John.
Myself, sir. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? All right. Okay. So I'm Jean-Jacques Chateauneuf. That's how you say it. But you can call me. Today I am Stumblebum the Great. That's me. Okay. So this is a true story. I wanted to, I alerted the authorities and no one would listen. And this is it. This is basically the story. With a wide open sky and a neighboring town nearby, on the side of a mountain in the German region of modern-day Bavaria, was a pine-wooded area where dwelt a mammoth, wretched monster, a purple ogre, booger eater, a beastly savage. The purple ogre smelt of cabbage, and when this hermit paid a visit, first the tremors and then the quake, the trees would crash, and then the houses would shake, and this was always certainly followed by the unhallowed and shrilly sound of a voice that swept the dust off the ground. The ogre, and I am here to eat your snots. His bum was furry, and he had an eye or two or three with an awesome height that soared above with terror and might. Ooga, booga, booga, boo. I see snivels, I see you. And snatching kids and twos and threes, he'd reach between his ooby knees, and with his tiny index fingers, he'd pick their noses and he'd eat their ooey boogers. The last time the ogre had come, wreaking in havoc and acting dumb, was the day that Esseros was chased away by a pitchfork-wielding angry mob that told him no more raising hellish hop. Mr. Ogre, every time you come to town, you always leave it topsy-turvy upside down. Go back to your cave, or we'll put you in an ogre grave. Of the booger-eating outlaw, it was the last they ever saw. He eventually packed up all his things, and though there have been a couple of sightings, some in India, others in Jamaica, no one knows where and when, but the purple ogre eater will surely strike again. Thank you, and cheers. Okay.
Cheers indeed. What a great poem to end our wild card open mic with the wildest poem of the day. With the wildest poem of the day. No, that's a good thing. We like it. We like it. We like it. Beautiful, beautiful. Please come back and read more. I love your exuberance. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think I've seen you read before on another platform, but I'm so glad you're here today. Well, folks, that is it for our wildcard open mic for October. And as you can see, I am like just bursting with joy for all the poetry today. At the top of the hour, let's take a moment and just unmute, and I will, I'll just have a few more announcements, and then we'll be off into our glorious evenings or days, rest of the day. Thank you so much, everybody. We heard at the top of the hour from Mona Zamfirescu, Sylvia Pollack, Harvey Zoss, Ken Burch, Cathal MacThréinfhir, Catherine Ronan, Sylvia Clare, Mona Lynch, Max Vandersteen, Linette Rabsatt, Joanne James, Gordon Ferris, and we muscled through to Billy Brown, Gary Lilley, Kara Briggs, Cynthia Pratt, Kate Wegrzyn, Corine Demas, and Jean, so wonderful,
Jean-Jacques.
wonderful. Jean-Jacques, I love it, I love it, I love it. Folks, thank you so much for being here today. I want to remind you all that we will be returning the first Sunday of November. Get your poems ready for our Poets Focus, where you are on the open mic. Our word for our Poets Focus is rise. Not Katy Perry's Rise if you are into pop music, although I do love the poem Rise by Katy Perry. But bring your poems around the theme of rise. And I want to give a little preview for our November New Book Showcase. I mentioned I would. I already said that Kara Briggs will be joining us. She's in the house here with us today. You heard her amazing poem. More of that to follow. She'll be joined by Phil Lynch, one of my Salmon siblings in Ireland, Janet McFadden, and Joshua November will be joining us. If you don't know Joshua November's work, he is a transcendent poet. I'm so glad that he will be joining us with his new book. That will be, I believe I'm going to give you the wrong date, but it's the second Sunday of November. So be on the lookout for those. Do mark your calendars. You will want to be here for that constellation. We are bringing you the most amazing poetry here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. I know it because we just saw it. We just saw it. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that well, here's what I want to say. In the United States, vote like you mean it, folks, because the world is watching. The world needs us to vote. So make sure you get your ballots in. And of course, as I always say, take very good care of yourselves in these upcoming weeks. The upcoming week, we're on a week off. Take extremely good care of your beloveds in whatever capacity that necessitates. And of course, keep writing, my friends. I'm Sandy Yannone, your host for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Thank you so much for staying that little extra time today so we could bask in the poetry. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye, Sandy. Bye, Sandy. Kim. Bye, everybody. Thank you.